Yo, what's up guys, it's Toki here, and today I'm going to be bringing you a Rainbow Six Siege settings video along with Windows. And I'm going to be providing you with the best settings that you can run in-game, along with Windows settings that you can tweak, optimize, change, whatever, in order to have a more smoother and overall better gaming experience. If you've learned something from this video or it helped you, make sure to drop a comment below, maybe like and sub, and with that, let's get right into it. Alright, so the first thing I'm going to be going over is the general option settings, and I do want to give a disclaimer that a lot of these settings in-game are going to be personal preference. So it's up to you whether you want to use them or not. But I will be trying to let you know which ones stick out more and which settings I think should be enforced a little more. So to start off, I have my ping on so I can see when teammates yellow ping things or like you get an entry from below or something. I have my display performance metrics off because I use an external application for my FPS counter up here, as you guys probably seen from my videos before, which if you haven't, you should sub and watch. But if I want to see my ping, I usually just hit tab, look at my ping, and then my FPS counter's up here. So I don't really use the in-game one. I think diffuser pickup and drone after prep are probably the ones you should change off rip though. I use both for diffuser pickup, so sometimes I can run over it and sometimes I can just hit the button, and it kind of just helps me out overall. For drone after prep, I like to have it on semi-automatic, but I think the best one would be manual. Automatic is just not good because when prep phase ends, it just kicks you off of cams. I have it on semi so that if I have my own cutoff cam or a pre-place, it won't kick me off of my own. I think manual is the best one here though, where when prep phase ends, it will not kick you off any cam, so you can hold like a teammate's cutoff cam or a pre-placed or anything like that once the game starts. I have my text chat on team. It's usually on all, but I've been keeping it on team recently to like save my mental and stuff. It's like I don't have to deal with like banter or shit talk. And I just leave crossplay, matchmaking, and communication on. And now I'll be going over the HUD. The first thing I should recommend is your compass appearance. On advanced, the compass is just so big and bulky. I'm not really a fan of it. I think simplify just makes it a lot easier. You still see your north, east, southwest. And most of these things in HUD settings are off in competitive games because of Pro League match settings. So it's usually just for the comfort and the clutter that I turn stuff off or simplify it in game. I think everything here should be on, like pings, etc., location, if you don't know the callouts especially. Now, if you TK a lot, sometimes I do, I will not lie, but if you TK like often, or you're not good at reading like your teammate's body position, like where they are in the map, you probably should keep this on. But I've just died back in the day too many times with it on to the outline, and in competitive environment this is off along with some other settings like score updates. So I do keep my score updates off too because of that. I like versus update off because you can look at the top to see whenever someone dies, whenever there's a trade. So I don't really like it on for the clutter, but if you do get tunnel visioned a lot, you should keep it on. Everything else here pretty much on. Now I'll be going over the audio. So for the audio input and output, your input would be the microphone you use when you like record your voice in like Discord or something. So I use my chat mic because I have a Go XLR. Output, I use my system. It would be whichever one your headphones are. And I recently lowered my master volume, my voice chat and everything. I think the reason why is because their audio is different per person based on their computer, their audio system, their headphones, earbuds, whatever they're using. So my game is a little loud, so I turn my audio down to 60 so that way I don't get tunnel vision, because if something is too loud, it does get harder to focus for me. For dynamic range, a lot of people use night mode since the discovery that it makes the footsteps more transparent and the gunshots lower. But if you're having issues hearing people and it's not the audio keys, just a straight sound, I would try turning on hi-fi or messing around. I would just avoid TV overall. And for voice chat record mode, of course you have to use push to talk. Can't have an open mic just sitting here like a 30-year-old dad from the army, just talking to his wife and kids in the game, cluttering comms. I wouldn't leave it on disabled because communication is important into winning the round sometimes, and you gotta talk. So for the display settings, in order to have good FPS, I play at 1080 max. 4K would just run my frame rate too much. I'm just not gonna do it. And your refresh rate should be on your maximum that you can have it on. But that just makes your game more responsive and smooth overall if you just have it on the maximum you can. For aspect ratio, this is personal preference. I play on 4:3 right now, 4:3 84 FOV, but sometimes I switch it up and go like 16 10 87 or 90 or 3:2. So just experiment with that and see what you like best. I have VSync off because it increases input latency sometimes when you have it on, and it could also lead to like other issues with your game, like maybe screen tearing, stuttering, etc. So I just keep it off. If you do have trouble with stable FPS, you should try limiting your FPS to what you would like it to. Now it's only 144 max on the game, but I'll show you later on how to go and make it if you need a higher FPS limit, like if you have like a 165 or a 240, 280, 360 hertz monitor. Everything else here is personal preference. I have my brightness on 55. Sometimes I go up, sometimes I go down. So now let's get into graphics. So do bear in mind, I am on Vulkan mode, which I do believe is the overall better version for Rainbow Six Siege. If you use normal build, some of these settings may not apply to you, but I am on Vulkan, so I have NVIDIA Reflex Latency on. I don't use on plus boost because it kind of draws too much power in my GPU and it causes unstable frame rate. So I just leave it on. My overall quality, everything is pretty much low or off. I have my LOD on high. Sometimes some people use it on low, some people use it on high. Experiment with what you like, honestly. The only thing I believe that shouldn't be low is your shadows, because if you have your shadows on low, it's because then they'll be static and not dynamic shadows, in which you can't see player shadows, just like items on the map, just map items. Everything else should be low or off. Now, if you do have a higher end PC, you can experiment with playing on like medium texture quality or something like that if you want like a better looking game. That's going to be it for the graphics. Now we're going to go on to controls. Alright, so for controls, I would normally tell you in any other game to put raw input on, but Siege always has a problem with raw input every season, to where they say it works and it doesn't, or they say it doesn't work and then it does. So I would just experiment with it and see what you like. I prefer it off. There isn't much, honestly, in controls to go over for the best settings. I will say that gadget and drone deployment should both be on advanced. Everything else down here is going to be personal preference. And I don't use a controller, so I can't really help you with the controller options. But if you're on PC, I mean, to be honest, I don't know why you're using a controller unless you're like Royal Penguin or something. But there's not really anything here that I could go over and recommend to you. This is purely all personal preference. And now let's go to accessibility. So for accessibility, the number one thing I'm going to tell you to do off rip for everybody is turn off screen check. A screen check is really bad for your visual clutter. It'll make the game much easier to play. Everything else here, you could just find out what you like by yourself. But now it's time for the good part, to get into the Windows optimization tweaks. So this one isn't really a setting, but it's more like something that you should keep note of, that if you use any of these. So if you do use overlays, like any overlay for your computer, like for example, use like R6 tracker, you use Steam overlay, use Shadow Play overlay. All of those overlays do cause frame loss. You will lose frames just by having those overlays. So anything that you don't need, I personally wouldn't use. But as long as you take off all the overlays that you don't use, it should save you a couple of frame rate. So the first thing that you can change is, if you go to your task manager, you can go to your startup. And with this, you can see everything that you have that starts up with your computer. I already went through, because I've done this a while ago, and I've disabled a bunch of the stuff that I don't need starting up with my computer. And just for the record, update with the GitHub publisher is usually Discord, if you guys are confused at what that is when you look into it. So just keep that one in mind there. You can also go to your Windows settings and go to startup here. I'll show you. And just like that, we're in the startup. This is kind of the same thing as the task manager, but maybe there's something lurking in here, so you just want to take a look and give it a shot at what you don't need. One thing too also is, if you use wallpaper engine like me to have like a moving wallpaper or some cool one, just do keep in mind that also costs you a lot of frames. So if you want to go in game, you should definitely have that, so when you're playing the game it shuts off, just to save you a couple more frames, and you probably will not regret it. So a really big setting that you should change to improve your gameplay is having mouse acceleration off. And to get there, you want to go to your Windows settings and your mouse settings, and it should be down here, or if you have it stretched, it should be here, additional mouse options, and you want to go to your pointer options and turn this off. Uncheck enhanced pointer precision. Alright, so the next thing I want to go over is probably going to be your display settings. So I'm going to close this and go to display settings here by right clicking the desktop. But you want to use your main monitor, and you want to go to your advanced display settings. Find your main monitor and hit the refresh rate down here. You can hit this on the highest. You can also, if you want to be sure, hit this display adapter properties. Then you can go to monitor and make sure this is at the highest. Also, this is a very nice tip, but make sure your Windows and your drivers are up to date. I'm on Windows 10 right now, and honestly, you could pause your updates for Windows. It's not as important as long as you have the major ones, like the critical updates. But for your drivers, like your graphics card and your CPU, everything else, your mouse too sometimes, make sure that firmware and that drivers are up to date. You can look at a video on how to do that. I can't really go into that because it's different for everybody. But now we're going to go into our game mode, which if I type game mode settings, you'll see pop up. And we're going to go ahead and turn game mode on, so Windows optimizes our PC for gaming. And while we're here, we're going to also go to Xbox Game Bar, and you're going to make sure that you have this off. You also want to go to your captures, and you can go ahead and turn all of this off too. I have record in background while playing the game off, so I don't have like anything else running or taking up my usage, etc. And now I'm going to take you into my power options and show you my performance plans. So if I type power and sleep settings here, you can see additional power saving here, and I'm going to click that. I have something called ultimate performance, which you probably won't have because this is with one of my CPU drivers, I believe. But you want to find whichever one you're on and make sure to set it on high performance. Now, I customized mine already, so I'm going to use ultimate performance for the example. But high performance basically provides the same thing. So I'm going to hit change plan settings here and then change advanced power settings. You're going to see here that there's a bunch of like wonky settings. Don't freak out. I know it's a little complicated, fucking computer nerd shit. I'm going to go to my wireless adapter settings and I'm going to go to power saving mode and set this to maximum performance because we don't want any power saving settings. While I'm at it, I'm going to go to my USB settings, my selective suspend settings, which is the same thing as basically power saving. It shuts off the USB ports that are inactive. And my processor power management, with high performance, it does get changed, but I put my minimum on 15 because I don't want my processor running at 100% all of the time. That's going to be it for the power saving settings for your power plan. I'm going to show you really quick. If you go to your internet down here and you right click and hit open network internet settings, you can go ahead and change adapter options and you want to find the one that you're using. So that'd be this one, for example, for me. Right click in properties, click configure. You want to go to power management and make sure both of these are unchecked. Now for these next tweaks, they're not really tweaks, they're more like knowledge and information. So I just want to let you know, if you do have your Windows on a hard drive, that will slow your entire computer down by a landslide. So you want to make sure you have Windows installed on an SSD, preferably an M.2. Some people have installed their Windows on a hard drive when building a computer and they don't notice, but your disk usage goes up a lot, and especially if you have your game 2 on a hard drive, your loading time is just going to be so slow. So make sure you have both your Windows installation and your Rainbow Six Siege game on an SSD. Alright, so now I'm going to show you something with your game that you can do in order to have a better experience. If you play on Ubisoft, I'll show you both Ubisoft and Steam version. You want to go to your games, then find Rainbow Six Siege. You want to go to properties and you can hit open folder here. This is also how you find where your game is located. I'll go ahead and show you the version for Steam. I'm going to open my Steam and I'm going to go to my Rainbow Six Siege. I currently don't have the Steam version installed, but it is the same process if I do like I click a different game. So I'm going to right click Siege, but I'm going to do this on Starfield, for example. You go to manage and you hit browse local files and it's going to take you directly to where your game's located. And you want to find your Rainbow Six or your Rainbow Six Vulcan, depending on which one you play. I play Vulcan, so I'm going to do it. You're going to right click, hit properties. You want to go to compatibility. And you want to make sure you have display full screen. And you want to make sure you have disable full screen optimizations on. And then you want to go to change high DPI settings. And you want to make sure you have override high DPI scaling behavior checked. Now there's one more Windows setting I want to go over. So if you right click your Windows start menu, go to your device manager, you can scroll down and you want to go to system devices. If you go ahead and expand your system devices, you're going to find something called high precision event timer. Now you want to right click and disable this. I already have it disabled, so I'm going to just leave it like that. And the reason why you want to do this is because it is said to have decreased input latency when disabled. That's going to be it for the Windows settings. And now I'm going to quickly go ahead and go into the NVIDIA control panel by right clicking my desktop and clicking NVIDIA control panel. This is for NVIDIA GPUs, and this can help make your game look a lot more appealing visually and help with your frame rate. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to change resolution. I'm going to make sure that all of my devices are on the correct resolution, which they are. And you want to scroll down to use NVIDIA color settings and just copy my settings here. Make sure you have the output dynamic range on full so you get the full RGB colors. Now I'm going to go to adjust desktop color settings. And you want to make sure on whatever monitor you game on, or if you have like a multiple and you want to change it, you want to make sure you turn your digital vibrance up. Now, you can experiment with this because it also depends on your monitor settings, but I find 70 to be a really safe number when it's usually 50. But digital vibrance is going to help add some more color pop to your game. It's just going to make your game look a lot better, trust me. So now I'm going to go to adjust video color settings, and I'm going to go ahead and click on my monitor, whichever one you have, then go to with NVIDIA settings, go to advanced, and then hit full. And I'm going to do that for all my monitors so I can once again get that full range of RGB, so there's more detail, more color, more everything. But now we can go into the performance settings. So I go ahead and hit adjust image settings with preview. Safe thing to do is hit use my preference emphasizing performance. And then I go back up to use the advanced 3D image settings and I hit take me there. It'll take you to your manage 3D settings. Now, I personally like to change the global settings, but if you don't want to change it for everything, you can go ahead and go to program. And you can hit add and find your Rainbow Six or your Rainbow Six Vulcan and go ahead and add that. And you can change them here. So I'm going to scroll slow here. And you see I have most of my stuff on just performance or normal. And then I have stuff on off or clamp. And then I have some stuff on just off. And I do have my texture filtering on quality because honestly I don't really notice much of a difference on performance versus quality for frame rate. So I just like to leave it on that. And I am going to change my preferred refresh rate to the highest available. I don't know why I had it lower. So you can go ahead and just copy my settings here. That's really going to be it for the NVIDIA control panel settings. Just make sure after you go ahead and change all these, you hit apply. But with that, we're going to get into the final settings that you can get into. But the last thing I'm going to be talking about is overclocking. So a lot of people like to overclock with MSI Afterburner, which I opened right here. It popped on my other monitor, but I personally don't use an overclock for boost. I use an undervolt. And the reason I use an undervolt is because I tweaked it so I have a lower GPU temperature so my room and my computer doesn't get as hot while still maintaining good frame rate. But if you're looking for performance, you're probably just going to look at an overclock. Now, I'm not going to go in and go in depth on these settings because it is different per device, per cooling system, per all of that. So I would just make sure if you know what you're doing, give this a shot. If not, I would not recommend. The next thing that's bundled with that is going to be your memory speeds, which if you go to your task manager and performance, if you know what RAM you have, like if you bought it on yourself, if you're using RAM, that's like example like Corsair Vengeance or some Trident Z memory, and you know that you should be at a higher speed than what's shown here, like mine is 3600 because that's what it was advertised as. If you don't change this in your BIOS, it probably will be like 2200 or something by default. So you can go into your BIOS and change that to the correct speed it should be, which would be 3600. This will help boost your FPS and overall your computer's performance. But like I said, please don't go tweaking something overboard. I would just set it to the memory speed that it was meant for or intended for use. And I highly stress not tweaking this heavy if you don't know what you're doing, because I don't want you to break something. One more thing on input latency also is there's a program called timer resolution, which I'm not going to be showing right now. But if you just open timer resolution, you can hit maximum and you keep that running while you play. A lot of people like to do that. And it kind of helps try to lower your mouse's input latency to a minimum. But that's honestly going to be it for the video. So that you can have some lower input latency. And that's really going to be it for the video now. If these settings did help you, make sure to drop a comment and letting me know. Maybe like and subscribe too. Like I said earlier, it does help a lot. It helps my channel grow. And that's really going to be it. Goodbye.